up our questioning with third row left, Andy Anders, 11 Warriors.
Yeah, Ryan, are you ready to name a starter at right guard, and what's the situation tonight on the offensive line?
Yeah, we'll keep looking at it this week. I think we're going to probably roll a bunch. It looks like going in that Tegra will start at right guard for us. He's had a good preseason. He's done a nice job. We'll continue to assess it, all the way up into the game time. But he's earned the right to start in this game. I think we're going to see us playing multiple guys in the offensive line in this game. But he's been consistent. Now he's got to go put it on the field and play.
Fourth row right, Spencer Holbrook, Letterman row.
Ryan, at linebacker, are you guys going with Sonny to start the game, and how do you figure that's going to, is it going to be like the right guard where you guys roll a bunch of guys?
Yeah, we're going to play multiple guys at linebacker, but Sonny has separated himself for sure, and we'll start at will linebacker for us. He has done a nice job in this transition from safety, and when you move up, the game moves faster. It's just quicker, and he's changed his body, and the reps that he got in the spring really helped. And I think he's done a good job of communicating. He and Cody work well together, but you're also going to see Arvell in there. You're going to see CJ in there, Gabe. These guys are going to get reps, and we'll try to play as many guys as we can in this game.
Let's go Tony Girdman, Buckeye Huddle.
Ryan, with the new quarterback starting, I'm sure you've seen him more than anybody. You know what to expect. What will you see from Will on Saturday for your expectations to be met?
Yeah, we want him to run the team and be clean. Get us in and out of the huddle. Get us up to the line of scrimmage. Be sharp. Take care of the football. You've heard me say the term "make the routine plays routinely." Play well on third down, red zone in 2 minutes. I mean, that's what we're looking for out of our quarterback. But in particular, in that first game, it's run a clean operation. That's ball security, that's cadence, that's communication. The new headset and how we're doing that, and we are going to be huddling some and those type of things. Not all the time, but that's a little bit different. And how are we converting on third downs and all those things, sideline adjustments. So it's getting into the game, getting a feel for it, and playing clean. That's what we're looking for in week 1.
Front row, Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, is the depth on the offensive line maybe a little better than you expected? I mean, Carson might be a backup for you guys after starting 12 games last year. I know some other guys you mentioned, like Austin, Zen, have stepped up a little bit. Do you feel good about the depth?
Yeah, one of the things, it was like early on, the little illness that was going around the offensive line was frustrating, but coming out of preseason camp, we felt like we built some depth because we had to, and some guys got forced into duty maybe a little quicker than they had to. And when you're working with the ones, you have to tighten up, all the things technically that you're getting away with, maybe with the 2s and 3s. When you're blocking Tyleek and Ty and those guys, you can't get away with that stuff. You better figure it out fast. And because of that, we have built more depth than we expected coming out of preseason. So that's been a positive. But we are going to try to get as many guys in the game as possible, grade it, and just keep evaluating. And one of the things that we talked about as a staff today is, you've heard me talk about building a foundation with this team. I mean, the foundation is not complete. I mean, this is a long build to the end of the season. So we want to come through this week, watch the game, get on the film, and figure out who graded out a champion, who didn't. But ultimately, we want guys to play really, really hard in this game and get it on film, start to make the corrections. When you're in preseason camp, there's a lot of assumptions you make, some that are right and some that are not right, about players, about scheme, overall personnel. So excited to get that going this week and figure out what we got going into Sunday.
Tegra's a pretty soft-spoken guy. How did he take the news that he's going to start on Saturday?
He's just going day to day right now and working. I think that's what's been good about the offensive line is, guys have been, working at it every day, and we've moved some guys around in there. Even as of this past week, we've shuffled it up a little bit just to kind of see guys move in different areas. We know we have to build depth going throughout the season, so I think it's going to pay off for us. But he's been workmanlike. It wasn't like he's knocking on anybody's door and saying, what is my situation this week. He knows that if he continues to play the way he is, he's going to be a starter for us and be a huge contributor. But it's consistent and consistency that we're looking for out of him. But he, he's been one of the guys that we've been able to count on in this camp, and that matters. When you get 20 some odd practices under your belt and you get the to 15 in the spring. Those reps add up, and he's been in there now for a while. When you think about the last couple of years, we really kind of got him with the twos even as a young player, and I think all of that is starting to pay off now for him.
Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
You've had a starting running back, but you've never really had guys who are co-starters for starters. Just for the sake of asking, who's going to take the first snap at running back on Saturday?
Yeah, I don't think Locke's decided that yet, but they're both rolling practice. It's we're going to get our money's worth this week with the Heat, and so we're going to be rolling these guys pretty good, and James is going to get in there as well. So, we haven't really talked about that right now. Those guys are rolling, and they're both going to get a bunch of reps on Saturday.
You mentioned James there. Has he made you guys feel comfortable about where the depth is in terms of who might be the third guy up at running back with the way he's played?
Yeah, I would say James right now is the third running back. He's made some really good strides. Now he's got to go put it on the field and play games, and that's different than just doing it in practice. There's still some things that he knows he's got to improve on in different areas. But in a part of that now is getting in the routine of playing a game and being consistent over time. And when you're a freshman, sometimes that can be a challenge, making sure you're getting your rest, making sure you're taking care of your body, and bringing consistency every week. So that'll be the challenge for him. But he's going to play in a bunch of snaps like a bunch of these guys. Yeah.
Far left, Joe Nugent, WCMH.
With the iPads now on the sideline this year, what type of impact do you think that'll have?
Well, it's the same for both sides. But I think the communication in game will be very, very important in identifying what's gone on in the last series. We did that in the stadium the last 2 Saturdays. We were able to go through and see what it would look like at halftime, what it would look like during the game, up in the booth, on the sideline. And, you have an ability to tag certain plays on your side of the ball so that you can all get to it at the same time, identify what those things are, and then make corrections or identify what scheme things are going on. So I think you're going to see, a little bit more in-game adjustments than maybe previously. But, other than that, football's still football. That's not changing.
Fourth row right, Jeff Gilbert, Press Pros.
Coach, in regards to Will and his mental approach, he's in a position of a team of expectations, goals higher than he's probably ever been around. How's he handled that since you named him the starter? How do you expect him to carry that onto the field?
Yeah, I expect him to be the same way he's been since he arrived here. We went through the recruiting process there, and he knew what he was getting himself into here at Ohio State. And not to speak for him, but I think there was only maybe a couple places he would have considered other than going to the NFL, and this was it for him. He wanted to be here, and I think a big part of that is he knew what came with it. And he's really embraced that role. He's been in here getting extra film work in this week already. He's put a lot of work in this preseason. So, we ask our quarterbacks to do a lot here, and he's embraced that part of it. So he's got a good look in his eye this week, and I think he wants to get on the field and get started.
Third row right, Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
Staying with the quarterbacks here, is Devin still firmly entrenched as your backup quarterback right now?
He is, yeah.
Going into the week, how do you want to kind of split those reps there? How quickly do you want to get on the field?
Yeah.
Plan for that, or just kind of feeling out the game?
Yeah, we've talked about that, Chip and I, about, as the season goes on, where do we want to insert him into games? We'll kind of see how the week plays out, but I probably don't see us doing that in terms of the third series or the first play of the second quarter in this game in particular, but it's something that we're considering.
Deep center field, Jeremy Birmingham, the podcast.
Ryan, I know as a coach you're not going to assume anything, but if other than winning and getting out of this weekend healthy, what makes this season opener a success to you as a coach and this coaching staff when you have put all this work in the offseason?
Yeah, it's not easy, but it's simple. You want as many guys to grade out a champion as possible, 80% or more. And you've heard me talk about that before, but sometimes the best answers are the simple ones. Guys, you grade it out, either you did your job or you didn't, 80% or higher. And then, that we are the hardest playing team in the country. That's really, I know nothing's going to be perfect. It's a start. But if our identity is going to be the hardest playing team in the country and we're going to be giving unbelievable effort, we have to put that on film. We got to grade out over 80%. And we got to play really, really hard. And that's what I mentioned to the staff today, and that's what we're going to talk about here in the team meeting at 2:30. And that's what we're going to really be echoing out through all the week, and then hold them accountable on Saturday. And then come in Sunday, identify what went well, what didn't go well, and continue to bang that drum. Also knowing that we're going to have to enhance our scheme as the season goes on.
You let everyone know that 130 years ago Akron won 12-6.
I have not.
Far right, Adam King, WBNS.
Well, kind of going off of that, since 2019, this is your first time opening against a non-Power 5 team. You don't have to go on the road against a Big Ten team. You're not playing top 5 Notre Dame. How is that different for you guys to be able to step on the field on Saturday? Not taking anything away from Akron, but knowing, it's not as much of a challenge.
Yeah. For us, it's always been about us. You hear me say that a lot, but you have to really focus on the process of it and like what are we doing, and our opponent shouldn't matter. If it does, then we're setting ourselves up for failure. So what is the standard? Again, grade over 80% and be the hardest playing team in the country, and that shouldn't matter who you're playing, because they all matter, they all count, and we're trying to create a standard for ourselves, and whatever team we play, and then we go from there. So like I tell the guys every day in practice, you're not allowed to have a bad day around here. It's just not allowed. So we have to understand that every time we only get 12 opportunities. That's it. Of all the work we put in and all the time and effort we put in, you get 12 opportunities. So let's go play with our hair on fire and run around and hit.
Dave Holmes, WSYX.
Ryan, we saw the guys wear the Jesus One T-shirts when they moved in. This weekend they had a baptism event. I'm curious, I haven't seen your team this vocal, at least when it comes to faith. What have you seen from them over the weekend, and is that something you feel in the locker room?
Well, I think this team is close. I think when you look at what they've done together as a group, they rub off on each other, and that part of it, that's their own business that they handle. But I think when you start to see and hear some of the messages that some of our team is giving, not only out in the community but to our own team on campus, those type of things, you just recognize what unbelievable guys we have in our locker room, the type of people that we have, and certainly the academic, what we've done being over a 3.2 for the last 2 semesters. And again, you're seeing things like this and some of the community outreach. I mean, they care about not only their teammates, but they care about the community. They care about Buckeye Nation. They care about the fans, and these are great people. And a lot of these guys decided to come back, or decided to come here, and could have gone a lot of other places, some to the NFL, to some to other schools, but they came here for a reason, and it was to make an impact. And the number one way they want to have an impact is win championships. But there's a lot of other ways to make impacts as well, and they want to continue to do that. So when it's all said and done, there's trophies in the lobby, there's rings to be worn, but there's also people that have been impacted, and there's stories to be told. And the guy to me that comes to mind with that is Archie Griffin. And now the statue is going to be in his name here this weekend. But of all the things he's done in terms of winning the 2 Heismans and all the great history he's had here on the field, to me it's the impact he's made off the field. And I can't tell you how many people have shared stories with me about being a young kid who looked up to him, and Archie took time, or he went to an event and spoke to folks and he took time, and because of that, he's a legacy. What he did on the field is unbelievable, but to me, he's even more special for what he's done off the field. And I think our guys have embraced that in the locker room.
Andy Backstrom, on 3.
Ryan, what will it look like for special teams in game? I know you've talked about strategy with using assistants. Is it going to be different for in game, and since the coaching changed with that rule? Are you going to allow Rob Keys and will they be involved in here?
Very much so, yeah. So Rob is going to be sort of the ringleader of it all, and I'm right there with him for everything. And we're going to utilize everybody we possibly can. Matt Guerreri is running the punt team. James Laurinaitis is doing the kickoff. Brian Hartline and Keenan Bailey are doing both the return units, kickoff return and punt return. But we got everybody involved. Tim Walton's been a big part of this. Each of the coaches have been very much involved with the special teams here in the preseason. So Rob is the point person. He's the one who's going to help game plan and organize, meet with the individual group. We met this morning with the entire staff who was involved with special teams, went through the game plan in all 4 phases. But then when we get on the field, I'll be involved in terms of the substitutions, making the calls with Rob, but then getting feedback from each individual coach.
Cameron T. Robinson, The Athletic.
Ryan, I know you said you guys hadn't figured out which running back takes the first snap. When you have 2 guys like this,
is it more so seeing those guys in terms of like figuring out carries? Is it more so figuring out which guys are the best and kind of going with the flow, or you feel like you have a minimum snap count that like each of these guys need to hit? I know you're not going to tell us what that is, but
Yeah.
the idea of that.
I mean, yeah, I think you have an idea of how many carries you'd like to see for each guy, but you don't know how it's going to shake, and Locke's going to get a feel for that, and he'll be responsible for handling the substitution pattern there. These things seem to have a way of working themselves out. It seems to be a topic of conversation sometimes, this time of year, like how's it all going to go? I think we get a feel for it, and assess it after the first game. This will be the first time for Quinn Sean that we've been in a game with him, and it'll be interesting to see, as we go, how he goes as the game goes, and the type of back that he is as the game wears on. But I'm excited to see these guys run.
Far left, Whitney Harding, WCMH.
Ryan, this weekend was an exciting week 0. I don't know if you got a chance to watch any of the games, but with Florida State losing, is that just another reminder that that number next to your name really doesn't mean a whole lot? And have you had any conversations with your guys as a reminder about that?
No, not in particular about that, but yeah, I think that's why you hear coaches say, when they talk about rankings, the first thing they talk about is what matters is the ranking at the end of the season, and it's coach speak, but that's a great example. I didn't get a chance to see any of the game, but yeah, I mean, I think the first thing that's noteworthy is because of the way college football is now with some of the roster turnover, you may not know exactly what you're getting with each team early in the season, and I think that's significant. Because, when you look at the roster of some of the teams early on, you're like, okay, where were they last year? Well, this guy came in from here, he came from there. Some guys got older, some guy maybe didn't play because he was injured, he comes back in, but that roster looks a lot different than maybe it did the year before. So I think, that's something that's noteworthy, but as we know, I mean, you got to bring it every week, and it has, what your ranking is has, no indication of where you're going down the road. What matters is what you put on the field and what you earn.
You mentioned the heat. How do you get your guys ready for what's going to be a warm game this week without kind of wearing them out at practice? Not your first time dealing with it, but it's a question.
Yeah, I mean, it's hot all across the country. You know what I mean? We're in the north, so I mean, it's just something you got to learn to deal with, and you got to hydrate really, really well and recover at night and get your rest. But yeah, you got to make sure you're hydrating throughout the week. If you think you're just going to hydrate the night before the game, it's too late by then, and then guys start cramping. So. We got to make sure that we're all over that and mix all over that, and we hydrate test everybody every day. So, we'll do that and just make sure we're on it. But, like I said, it's hot, other places other than Columbus, Ohio. So we'll handle it.
Right next door, Jared Smalley, WCMH.
Hi, Ryan. On the subject of roster management, big picture question here. You now have a general manager, and now that you're into the football season, you're relying on him to do things that are new in that role. Some of the programs like yourself in Alabama have these positions now. Can you walk us through Mark's contribution, how it's evolved in that title, and what that allows you to do in your role coaching the football team through the season? Because there's so many tasks involved, roster management, understanding how NIL is functioning and who's getting what. How does he help?
How does he help? Boy, that's a long answer. Because first off, Mark is he's been unbelievable to me personally. He's been unbelievable loyal to me and loyal to the program. He is somebody who works really, really hard at his job, and I think he's the best in the business at what he does. And his job has completely changed even, in the last 6 years. He's an excellent evaluator. He does a great job of understanding where the college landscape is going, where it needs to be to adapt. And, he's really had a huge hand in putting this roster together. Now, it used to be the evaluating and then the recruiting part of it, the weekends. But then when you went to official visits in the spring, that completely changed. Now, we've gone from having a couple people on a visit to now having, 15 recruits and their families and you're talking over 100 people for a weekend. And it's almost like event management. There's that part of it. Then there's, the NIL piece of it, and his conversations with agents and, some of the folks in the community, and he's had a huge hand in all of that. So he's, his role has increased, and it's become more and more important. And like I said, I think he's the best in the country at what he does.
Steve Hellwagon, 24/7 Sports.
Coach,
give us a breakdown of like Chip Kelly up or down, like how that's all going to look, where the coaches will be stationed and all?
Yeah. His plan is to be up in the box, and I think for him, being able to get organized up there, he's got the tablet up there, he's got his call sheet up there. He can really, be clean after every series. I think that's one of the things too that he and I were even talking about, is that when you're on the sideline and you're the head coach, you have your call sheet, but it's hard to get your next series ready when you're doing all these other things. When you're up there, you got a desk, you can sit down, you can get your thoughts organized for the next series. You can go through everything, you can communicate well, and so that's going to be his plan. Tim Drebno will be up in the box with him, Billy Fessler, and Tony Johnson on offense.
Wide receiver, we've asked about a lot of positions, who's starting. I know you were taking the tact of slow rolling the talk about Jeremiah Smith, but where do things stand there at that position with maybe the top three that are going to be out there to start?
Yeah, they're and Brandon Innes is right there. Bryson Rogers, Kojo Antwi, Jaden Ballard. I mean, you'll see all these guys play. I'm excited to see them play. They put in a good preseason and need a couple more days of prep into this first week, but they're excited to get out there just like everybody else.
You think Jeremiah will be out there at the beginning?
Yes.
Folks, we've got to keep it at one question or we're not going to get everyone in. Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, since the 2 losses to end last season, it seems like you guys have just been building towards this. And I know you mentioned earlier that this build continues. This doesn't end anything. But to get to week 1, to get to a game, to kind of get back into that rhythm after an off season of talk and whatnot, just how much is there the excitement and getting things rolling?
Yeah, we were really excited, and that's kind of what we said. Yesterday was our first game week practice of getting back on the field and playing games again. It feels like forever since we played a game, and there's been a lot of hard work, mostly by the players, but also by the coach, by the staff. A lot of people involved to build this team, and Coach Mick and his staff and coaches and everybody involved to put this roster together, to go attack the season. And I can't say enough about the leaders and the guys in this team who have continued to work hard to get to where we are right now, and now it's time to go put it on the field and play. But no, there's a lot of excitement, and just like any time around here, everyone's excited about the season. There's a lot of talk around Ohio State football, and that's great. But what matters is what we put on the field and what we do on the field. So, like I said, fired up to get on the field and get on the film afterwards and figure out where we're at.
Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, with Will having a couple weeks going into the season to be the starter, do you feel like the offense is in a better rhythm than maybe it was this time last year?
We'll see after the first couple games, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I do feel like we've had some really good days of practice. I feel like we've had a couple really good moments in some scrimmages. Still looking to be more consistent. Still, where our expectations is my expectations of where we are and where we are right now. We're not close, but I didn't expect us to be either. So it's like I said before about Quinshawn. It's the same with Will. Like, we haven't played in a game with Will. We haven't played in a game with Quinshawn. So I'm again fired up to see what it looks like on the field. But then get on there and figure out if some of the assumptions we've made are accurate and which ones aren't, and then enhance the things that are going well and fix the things that need to get fixed.
Bill Landis, Kings of the North, the podcast.
Ryan, you and Chip both last week, I think it was maybe 2 weeks ago, when Will was named the starter, said that the quarterback is the run game coordinator. And I don't know that I've ever heard you put it in those terms before. So is there anything different that's on Will's plate in that regard, or just what are you expecting him to handle when you say the quarterback is the run game coordinator?
Yeah, I think it's something that, and it's an approach that Chip's always had, where there are multiple places the ball can go, in particular with the way that Chip likes to run it, and some of the things that we've done in the past with like Justin Fields, where you're reading an end, and you have to make a decision. I'm either giving the ball or I'm pulling the ball. There's an opportunity to throw the ball or hand the ball off, or check the play. So, rarely in this offense do you just take the ball, hand it off, and move on. There are some that take a deep breath, but I think what Chip is getting at, and kind of, when we say run game coordinator is, the decisions that have to be made. It's not just in the passing game, it's also in the run game. equating numbers, reading players, whether they're linebackers, safeties, or on the line of scrimmage.
And Will's handled that pretty well, you think?
He has. He has, yeah. And he needs to be. I mean, he's got to be an expert. He's got to be the best in the country at that, because if he can do that, then, and again, not extraordinary, just routine plays, making them, then we'll have an opportunity to continue to make first downs. We want to have positive runs and get completions. And that's the focus early on as we get going.
Tom Berry, WBNS.
Coach, you've said that you've seen an edge with this club in practice. How important is that? What do you do as a head coach to enhance that? And do you think these guys are ready to play a game now?
Yeah, it goes back to how we practice. And if we're going to play that way, we have to practice that way. And again, this is, age-old commentary. But, if we expect to play with an edge, we got to practice with an edge. If we're going to play tough, we got to practice tough. If we're going to, have guys, getting their hands on balls in the back end, then we got to do it in practice. If we're going to have guys finishing down the field, then we got to do that in practice. If we have guys playing, on punt return who are going, 12 seconds on a return rep as hard as they possibly can go, that's got to happen in practice. And so we just continue to create those environments and demand that there's that. Now, for this team, we haven't really had to demand it that hard. I mean, when it's time to go, when you put the ball down, they're going at it hard. But that's our job as coaches to create that environment, because, as the saying goes, you're going to sink back to the level of your training. And so we have to make sure that happens every day in practice. And, good news is it's been like that in practice, but it's going to continue.
Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
With most of your other quarterbacks, I guess, Justin, with the exception, you had years to build a relationship with them. You haven't with Will. What have you done to kind of hasten that process? And I know he wanted you to coach him hard, and if you could give details of how you've done that, great. But how have you kind of hastened that relationship with him, and how is it right now?
Yeah, I was able to spend a little extra time with him, during the spring, and and I'm right there next to the quarterbacks, and he definitely doesn't have to worry about me coaching him hard. I can tell you that. But I think he knows. I think there's a level of trust there. He knows, what's come before, and we talked about that during the recruiting process. That all right, here's what needs to happen in order for you to get to where you are. And again, I just see the way he's been in the hallways this week. He's been around it. He's studying it. He wants it. So this is just the beginning, but he wants to be a great player, and he knows that if he buys into this offense, he buys into this team, he buys into our culture, that he's going to do that. We've seen that all and more so far. So again, it seems like we're never going to get to this first game and get on the field, but it's time to get on the field and go play football.
Austin Ward, podcast.
Ryan, you've talked often about the potential length of the season and needing to build depth. You've been asked about a couple specific positions, but I know they're all different. Generally, do you think that your philosophy to younger guys or building depth, whether that's by design or different game situations, do you think that's going to be different? Do you expect it to be different? What is the planning to build that early in the year?
Yeah, I think that it needs to be a little bit different. I think there's some things we've done in the past that have been really good, and some other things that we probably need to do a little better. But also considering that this is going to be a different season. So I think that leads you to, there's some things that we need to do to make sure. And sometimes, you got to go put them in the game and, kind of hold your breath. But it's the right thing to do, because you just never know how these things are going to go. So, again, whether it all happens in the first game or not, who knows? But philosophically, we got to get guys in the game, and we have to prepare guys to get ready, because, that run down the stretch is going to take everybody we got.
Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, now that you've had a full preseason run up to practice with the helmet communications and all that, how has that gone? How do you anticipate it just being a factor, and what have you kind of learned from practicing with it?
It's different. Yeah, it is different. And, cutting it off at 15 is significant. Making sure that we have a plan for if it goes out, which can happen at times. When we were in the NFL, I remember that would happen sometimes. You've probably seen it in some of the games where it goes out for 30 seconds, and that can get you out of whack fast. So just those type of communications. But I think it's allowed Chip to communicate in particular situations really well with the quarterback. What's the down the distance? What can we expect here? Those type of things. And then getting feedback from the quarterbacks on, what is too much information. So it's been good, but, the day-to-day has mostly been just, in practice. The two that we've had were mock scrimmages. We turned it off at 15 to really get a feel for that. So, we'll get the call in early and get them lined up and go from there.
To clarify, will Chip Soley be the one talking to Will, or will you be able to talk?
So I have it on me, which we did the other day, and I just realized that. I said, well, I don't know if that's good or bad for you, but so I do have the ability to get on there and talk to him, but I'm mostly going to let Chip do that.
Any final questions? Tim May podcast.
Thanks, Jerry. Three-parter. Number one, will you watch the Connor Stallions piece tonight on Netflix? Number two, what is your favorite moniker going into this year? Is it Hair on Fire, or is it Leave No Doubt, which you said in Indianapolis, which was kind of stirring, to a certain extent?
Mm-hmm.
And then number three, what do you want most? Now, I'll ask another number three. A lot's being made of the $20 million mark that Ross threw out there and stuff nationally about this roster, but you had a lot of guys come back, et cetera. And just what's your take on that kind of like hanging over this team as it heads into the year?
Yeah, so no. What was the second question?
What's your favorite moniker? Hair on Fire?
Yeah, I like
Leave No Doubt.
Yeah, Leave No Doubt is something that when you again look back at kind of where we've been and coming up a drive short, a play short, and you can't leave it to one drive. You can't leave it to one play. You just can't. You have to leave no doubt. And that's it. It's like whether it's a prize fighter going down to either knock them out or leave it to the judges. You can't do that. And so that's been something that we've talked a lot about. Mick has hammered it in the off season. We still break down some of our meetings that way. We have to do that. So that's probably the one this year that we've grabbed onto the most. And then our team, every year the expectations are high. We've talked about this for years, and there's been a lot of teams, a lot of talent, a lot of great teams here. So that's nothing new. And so our focus, and this team has done an unbelievable job of just putting one day in front of the other and going to work. And that's about to start here. So I think our guys have had a good preseason. I think they're focused. I think they know what's important right now, and that's what we're going to do. We're just going to focus on trying to play the best game we can on Saturday and build from there. And that's all we can do.
I'm talking about the $20 million thing is some people, best roster money can buy type thing and stuff. Does that bother you that that's out there?
Well, I think, sometimes, things are said, but when you look at our guys, they're here because they want to be Buckeyes. They're here because they want to win championships. They're here because of each other, and to see, what they did the other day on campus, to see the impact they're making on people. Like, they understand what it means to be a Buckeye. They understand what it means to win a championship here. And that's the most important thing to me. The other part, there's a lot of changes in college football, and we're going to do everything we can to adapt and make sure that we're doing our part. But there's been a lot of hard work to put this roster together, and that's great. That's what we're supposed to do. We're doing our job. But to me, it's about these players, and that's the number one thing for me. And that's what allows me to put 2 feet on the ground every day, is envisioning, these guys and these players, hosting trophies and winning championships. And I think it's the same way with our entire staff.
Great. Coach, thank you very much.
Yep.